Бьем все рекорды по количеству людей. Надеемся, оправдаем этим ивентом ваши ожидания. Значит, я перейду на английский, потому что сегодня спикер у нас разговаривает на английском. And he was very curious to come to Cherkasy and speak in front of us. Right yesterday he was speaking in Dubai, if I'm not mistaken, in front of the rich oil guy, like the guys who have a lot of oil and etc. He can talk about it himself. So please welcome founder of TransferWise company, Kristo Kaarmann.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Oh, wow, this is loud. So I really liked the music before, and I now feel a little bit bad that you have to listen to me and not the music. But I heard that afterwards there's a disco downstairs.
Yeah, there will be a party. So a bit of
too many guys, but it's okay.
Couple of words on the today's schedule. So now we will talk about the TransferWise and the topic which you have seen with Kristo for about 45 minutes. We want to make it more interactive and more interesting, so we will not put any slides aside. We will do some interactive talking. If you have any question, you can raise your hand. And I'll come to you and ask, or maybe you can say from your place, even in Russian, I can translate it to Kristo, he will answer. So let's keep it a bit interactive. Of course, after the talk, you will be able to also answer some questions. And if you're shy or you cannot formalize, maybe you can just type in the Twitter. So we have in the events newsfeed Twitter account where you can post your questions, and Lena will be moderating this Twitter account and asking these questions from Kristo. So let's go. Kristo. Can you tell us a bit of TransferWise? What is that? How it's all started? How it's all happened?
Yeah, I think that's the best way for me to explain it. So what I'll do is I'll talk in kind of about 4 things, and about those 4 things, they're going to be the 4 stages of the company. So I promised to talk about 100 things that we did wrong. I'll probably only have time for about maybe 15, but there definitely have been more than 100 that we got wrong. So don't hesitate to ask questions. So I'll talk about 4 things. I'll talk about how TransferWise got started, so the kind of the pre-launch stage. I'll talk about the early days. So the early days when we didn't have any money and kind of went from 0 people to 12 people. It was the first year. And then I'll talk about the kind of the forming stage when the company really formed and started the revolution. That was, I think, when we went about from 12 people to maybe 200 people. And then I'll share some thoughts of where we are now, which is going from 200 to more than 400 now. And there are probably going to be another 200 fuck-ups that we haven't done yet. So I'll have to come back in a couple of years and tell you about those. But I'll get going, and don't hesitate to stop me. So what TransferWise is? So the whole thing started actually about 10 years ago. I'm from a small country, Estonia, so I was surprised to see so many of you here. But then I realized that I remember also back in Estonia, it's very dark, it's up north. I'm sure Ukrainian banks are very good. Banks in the Western Europe, as you've heard, are pretty poor. Not poor in terms of wealth, but poor in terms of ability. And they're usually come with a lot of legacies, so they're trying to think, how should we run the banks in a more modern way? So that's my job about 10 years ago. But that was irrelevant a little bit for TransferWise, because TransferWise was started from another problem, that whenever I moved money from my English bank account to my Estonian bank account, I still had mortgage and savings and everything was in Estonia, but I got paid really well. When I moved to London, I got a lot of money, and I had no idea what to do with it, because I honestly, if you get a good salary for a little while, you don't know how to use it. So I sent it back to my savings account in Estonia, but I found that a lot of money goes missing, and that wasn't okay. So I called my bank in England, called my bank in Estonia. They said they did everything all right, And then I realized that the way this works is the bank tells you that, okay, your transfer costs £15, but actually they give you an exchange rate that is very different from what you expected. So you are dealing with this every day in Ukraine with your hryvnias not being worth a lot, and the other day they are, and so on and so on. But in the Western world, this is quite unusual. So I didn't know this was happening. And I found out that what they do is they tell you it's £15, but really they take £500 as this special exchange rate. So this wasn't okay. And being from the ex-Soviet Union, of course, I tried to find a better solution. So I had a better solution very quickly. My friend, actually a few of my friends, had the same problem but on the other side. So they were working in London, but they were paid in euros. So they had a lot of euros, I had a lot of pounds. I just gave them my pounds, they gave me my euros, and we look at the real exchange rate. So I managed to save about 500 pounds. That's a lot of money for a young kid. And they managed to save the same amount on the Estonian side.
Sorry, £500 in total, or for some periods?
£500. That example was in particular after Christmas bonus. So, just to give you kind of the amount of scale, the banks usually take like 5%. So that was you can calculate my Christmas bonus was around 10,000 on one of those years. I was working very hard. You had a question back there. We had PayPal back then, and we had money bookers back then, and we had web money and all of those things. Do you know what? They do exactly the same thing. I'm sorry if you found out now, but you're probably been shafted, as they say in England. So it's actually a true story. So this is not unique to banks. Actually, PayPal takes about 4% if you change the currency. I don't know exactly what Yandex does or the other platforms, but I couldn't find at the time. So I looked very hard because I thought this was outrageous, but I couldn't find anything that goes below 2.5% or so. Okay, so you're not taking £500 of my money, but you're taking 250. That's still not okay. So that's why we started first doing with each other, because that doesn't cost us anything. We just swap the money. And then about 5 years ago now, in 2010, I was kind of getting more and more frustrated with the banks or with my job as part of it, because I tried, as I said, I worked very hard, I got good bonuses, but I didn't really see anything improving. I didn't really feel that I was actually helping the banks a lot, or the banks getting any better. So partly, part of me getting just more frustrated with the work, and on the other hand, realizing that the banks are not getting better and this problem is not getting solved. So we thought, okay, let's give it a try. And initially, it kind of started in my bedroom. I knew how to code, so I've studied mathematics and computer science as well, but I've never really worked as a developer. So don't tell my team that they still think I can develop. But honestly, I'm not a developer. So I kind of I Googled how do you build a web application.
Every developer does it.
I thought so. So I Googled and I stumbled on. Okay, so it was quite hard. So I knew I can do it, right? So I knew it's not very hard. I need to take money from someone in the UK, and I need to take some money from Europe, and then I need to kind of send it back again. But I had never built anything, so it was quite interesting. So I Googled how to do it, and I found so I thought, like, what kind of programming language should it be in? I can code a little bit in about 10 languages, but nothing special. So for some reason, I don't know why, I thought it must be kind of Java related, because like big banks are in Java, and it felt like it's probably a good thing. So I found this thing called Groovy and Grails on the internet. It should be really simple to build stuff, and it was. So I started kind of very much from nothing, and thought, okay, it can't be that hard. We just need to make some web forms and some kind of backend to figure out who has paid how much in, and how much should go on the other side, and then have some matching. And so I built this. And sadly, there's still probably part of that code from 2010 in the code base.
And did it happen like when you already met, like was dealing with Tavet and you decided build it together, or it was like your initiative at home to try coding something in this direction?
Well, these things always start. If you think bit of advice to whoever wants to start a business, so start building something, there's no stopping really. You should start. You should just get on with it. So if you think that this is a problem that you can solve, then just get on with it. So did I. So I started just building it without asking any permission from anyone. It feels like whenever I speak with young founders, it feels like they're expecting a permission, like we need to get into some accelerator or find some funding. It's like an external validation or some kind of permission that you're allowed to do this. It's all nonsense. You just start and you get on with it. So actually, initially that's what I did, and then I started showing it to my friends. Like, what do you think? Would it work? And that's how you kind of meet the first people who you're going to work with. So that's kind of one of my learnings, that you don't hold back. And then that's how it started on the engineering side. I kind of started coding it. It looked horrible. It looked totally horrible. First the front end, but that was expected. After we brought in some real engineers, I found out that the code looked pretty horrible too. But anyway, so the kind of the process took about a year for me. From first starting coding, I didn't know how to code. It was buggy, and I spent most of my time debugging. And once I showed it to my first, I had kind of the flow in the web browser. I showed it to my first friend. He said, "Dude, this is shit. You should start again." So he was a banker. He's a banker. He's been a banker all his life, and he's probably the most cynical person I know. So his point was basically, I kind of designed it initially to be very similar to how an external broker would do it, like you mentioned PayPal or WebMoney. The idea was that, okay, let's just take less. So we think that there's a cheaper way of doing it. Let's do the same things that banks do, but do it cheaper. Let's not take 5%, let's take 0.5%, but still put it into the exchange rate. So then my friend asked, so Kristo, you're going to be doing this website which matches people with each other, and who are you to say what the exchange rate is? Like, what's the point? Surely you should use the real exchange rate. So he was the guy who gave me the first idea that there is always an exchange rate. You can go to Bank of Ukraine or Central Bank of Ukraine or Reuters. There's always the real exchange rate, and all the other exchange rates that people come up with, this is all really just noise. And he kind of taught me the idea that you're nobody, so you better act as a nobody. You're just there to match people. So that's what I did. So when I promised to talk about fuck ups, then I think that's one of the fuck ups. Just the fuck up of, it was fuck up. It meant that I wasted like 2 months basically. But that's over the grand scheme of things, it was good. That I just wasted some time and then came up with something pretty good. So the solution was just to show what the real fees are. Say that, this is the exchange rate, that's the same for whether you're transferring pounds to euros or euros to pounds, but we just charge a fee, and we shouldn't be ashamed of it. And now we have some transactions that are a few millions of dollars, so we charge like thousands of dollars in fees, and that's okay. It's better to charge thousands of dollars and tell people that you do it than not tell them. So that was the first fuck up. It's just kind of not knowing my place in the world when I designed this product. The second fuck up was when we started getting closer to launching. I showed to about 40 friends. I think there were only, so basically built the product, I brought them on, and I think only 4 or 5 of them actually used it. So I wasn't sure, like 1 out of 10, it's a pretty bad adoption. And I kind of tried to convince them that they should use this, but they didn't really. But a couple of them did. So I was in between. So we launched in January in 2011, and it was just a blog post on TechCrunch about 2 Estonian dudes who built a website that you can send money to this website. And that was in 2011. And that was the kind of the second fuck up, because I remember that we stressed about a month at least whether we have strong enough servers to manage all the load. So my co-founder Taavet, he used to work for Skype, so he knows this time when you have like 100 million users attached to your site and it kills it. So we were always, I remember it was that first time where I think we wasted a month to put it on a stronger platform. But we realized then that actually it's impossible to get millions of visitors onto your website, and if it's not broken, then performance is usually the least thing that you worry about when you're starting a business.
Question: who were your early adopters? Other customers, not friends, but who somehow found TransferWise and came and used it?
So basically there are people who I invited before launching. These were really my friends or friends of friends, and as I explained, none of them started using it. But now moving into the second section, when we went from 0 people to 12 people, it's what I call the early days. Then I really got to know customers. So what happened was we put this website up onto the World Wide Web, and people started using it on the first day, and it was fascinating. So we had someone just on this blog post sent us £2,000 that we should send it to France, and then a few minutes later someone put some euros onto our euro account to send it to the UK. So that was kind of big thing when I first worried that maybe no one uses it. Then you suddenly have people who are using it. It kind of proved that if you have a good product, you put it out there, if it's interesting enough, you'll find people that have a need for it. And actually we found on that day that people had a lot of need for it. It wasn't just maybe we had 10, 20 people who actually sent us money the first day, which was wow. But we also I got like 100 emails from people who were saying that, I was a student in Canada, I had exactly the same problem, I knew my bank was ripping me off. I was having other guys saying I'm having this scheme with my friend in France, so I was doing the same thing. So I realized that that's where we got kind of confirmation. That was the real validation. The real validation that there probably are actually quite a lot of people out there who have the same problem. It was the validation that the problem exists.
These days in TransferWise, we were carefully looking into our customers and trying to understand how they use our product and how to improve it, etc. So at that early days for you, these first customers were really important. Did you contact them, maybe calling or something?
Yeah. So on that first day, actually, that was I was still working for banks. almost. So it was kind of tough. I had all these emails I had to respond to. So I looked at my phone book, and we hired the first person on the first day. So Eva joined then, and since then, she started helping me with emails. But I had to do quite a lot of that as well, because once the transfer started, needed to start going through that very same day. So someone needed to kind of make these payments, and people had questions, so you need to answer them, and if something goes wrong, you need to help them. So that was for me the most exciting part. I shouldn't say most exciting, but this was where I really spent probably 3 or 4 hours every day calling customers. And the trick that we did in the early days was we figured that you can't really create a website without the phone number on it. Just because even if you put a phone number on it, it creates a lot of trust. So we had a couple of ideas. So my first idea was, let's just put some random phone number on it. It just looks like a phone number. So, okay, some people who call it will figure it out, but maybe others don't. But then we had a better idea. So that was a very stupid idea. But it didn't turn into a fuck up because we didn't do it. We did something smarter. So there was like a receptionist callback service. So you can pay like $20 a month that someone picks up a phone. Says, hey, this is TransferWise. What's your message? And it kind of types up the message, and then I would call them back. So that's what I spent doing, like 3 hours of every day, just calling back people who had called us and replying to their emails. So that was very fascinating. We at one point we had we looked at the transaction data, and there's a lot of transfers coming from Spain, and we couldn't figure it out. Like, how is it possible? We're still a very small company, and suddenly there's so many customers from Spain. And we figured out that during those calls that there was this one guy in Alicante, which is in southern Spain, who had told all their friends. So he started using TransferWise, and he told everyone in Alicante about TransferWise. So he was an old guy. He was like 65, 70, retired from England to Alicante, and he was just going on around the town and telling everyone they should drop their bank and start using TransferWise. So that was the first. That's where I learned the power of the word. So that's where I learned that when someone likes your product, it doesn't really matter how much you advertise. It helps. But if you get guys like this dude in Alicante, I can't remember his name now, who goes around and really tells everyone, that is so much more powerful, especially if you deal with something like money, which is something people are scared about.
So you mentioned previously that you hired a girl who was she was replying to emails. At that moment, is the company was profitable? I mean, the product that you tried to make, was it paying off for the salary of this girl, or you were spending like your own money?
We maybe were profitable on the first day because we didn't pay anyone's salary, and we still earned a tiny bit on every transfer. So we maybe were profitable with 10 euros. But since then we haven't been profitable. We're not profitable now. We spend more than we earn, or I should say, we invest more than we earn. No, we were actually spending our own money. So that's also a very cool experience. I don't have you heard about my 10,000 euros. That was pretty much all the money that I had. The other Christmas bonuses weren't that good, so I still had this money to spend. So I spent my money a little bit, and my co-founder chipped in with some money as well. So I think our budget for the first year, we probably ended up spending something like, maybe it was something like 15,000 euros. It started getting more expensive when I came to Cherkasy. So the problem was, actually, I should explain it. So we didn't raise any money from anyone. It was just our own project. So I quickly realized that I cannot code. I made my first fuck up. I hired a friend who knew how to code, but it was really difficult to deal with a friend, and I wasn't probably competent enough to deal with engineers, and he wasn't very competent in writing code for a startup. So that thing failed, and then I was started to look like how do I get help? I was solving a problem of getting help, and I looked on as everyone does. I Googled. So I Googled. I knew a lot of engineers in Estonia, but I also knew that I cannot, like, especially when you're a starter, you're nobody. So if you're a nobody, how do you convince people who earn like a lot of great salary in Skype or at a bank to work with you on a no-name project? So I went and Googled, and I found some engineers in Cherkasy. So it was Bogdan Daniliuk and his friend Artyom were here. They said that they would love to code. I said, okay, cool. I need some coding. I need some coding. So I started working with Artyom and then Bogdan. And I had before tried. There's someone in Omsk in Russia who helped me, and there was a guy in Pakistan who helped me. But working with Bogdan was, somehow it felt very different. And I think it was different because it felt like he built this for himself. Whatever he did, he didn't build it for me, but he built it for either himself or imagining himself as a user of this thing. And he didn't take any shit from me, so I couldn't really tell him what to do. He said, "Kristo, it's a bad idea. I'll do something else." So that's how it got started. So we first started working with Bogdan like a few months after launch, and by the end of the year, Bogdan had somehow convinced some of his friends here, in Sergei Karpenko and Andriy Dekterenko, to join us. So actually, we started like slowly accumulating a little team, which is starting to cost us money, but that was okay. And we were really, really very scrappy because we didn't have much to spend. So by the end of it, I think we were 12 people by the end of the year.
This feels like a bit risky, like you spending your own money, like hiring guys in somewhere in Ukraine. And can I ask, did you try it doing startup before and maybe fail it?
I have actually. I did a startup in when I was 18 years old, and it failed. Thanks for asking. Thanks for reminding me. But it failed for different reasons. We didn't hire. Actually, we almost didn't hire anyone there, and we didn't spend a lot of money. It failed because we really didn't have a business model. We built an app for monitoring what's happening on stock exchanges and for letting small investors to kind of draw charts and follow news and stuff like that, which wasn't the thing in mid-90s, 98. But this failed, yes, so thanks for asking.
Let's not talk about this then.
So that was the second year, second kind of phase, the early years, the bootstrapping. So I'm just trying to think what failed there. I made some notes. It wasn't actually easy to come up with things. I think one of the big things that we learned back then was that. So actually, I know what my first fuck up was, and I still feel a little bit worried about this. When I started getting those calls from customers, I was really scared calling them back. Maybe I'm probably an engineer myself. I really was worried about speaking with a customer because I didn't know what they're going to ask. It felt like a little bit of a, the guy who's done something bad. And now, someone's going to call and be mad at me. But that was so wrong. These were probably the best conversations. So every time I finished my customer calls, I felt so much better and so much more motivated to keep going. So that's, if you're an engineer, I think the one thing you can do if you don't do it is try and call customers. So write them an email. Hey, I know that you're using my product. Do you mind if I give you a call? and you probably need to send out 10 of those emails, and 3 of them will say, yeah, please, Monday afternoon. So that was my first fuck up. I was really worried, and I'm still worried. So I still do customer support every couple of weeks now. And the first call, I always shake a little bit, but it gets better after the first call. The other thing that we fucked up was so I think that actually we didn't fuck up. So we bootstrapped. But I think nowadays it's quite easy to find money. So you should probably not wait for a year to raise money. So at the end of it, it was getting quite tight. So we were running out of it, and we should have probably started thinking of fundraising earlier.
Question for the person that never fundraised. So is it scary to fundraise? Do you promise anything? Do you maybe some mobs will be chasing you after if you don't succeed?
Yeah, don't raise from the Italian mafia. No, it's not. No, it's not scary to fundraise. What I would say, so we were very lucky. So in some ways we were very lucky because we hadn't fundraised and we had a working product. We had customers that were actually paying us money, and we could at least think of an idea where how big this problem is that we're solving. It wasn't scary. It was very hard in the first place because no one really wanted to give us any money. So we spoke with a lot of people and we spent too much time on it, actually. Now that I've done this a few more times, I would probably very, very much limit the time I spend on fundraising, because it's usually the least productive thing that you can do in a startup.
Where you fundraised first time?
We joined an accelerator. So that's another thing that you could think of. And there are so many these days. It was quite rare back then in 2011. There's a accelerator called Seed Camp. So their idea was that they give a very little money for, it's like 2,000 euros or something like that to startups, and then they kind of put you in a mentorship, and they get you together with other startups, and then teach you a few things of building a product and building a product and kind of getting customers. But we first really fundraised after that, about a year after launching. We couldn't raise money in Europe, but we were contacted by someone in the US who then offered to give us $1 million, which is like 100 times more money that we had spent so far. So we flew to New York. We had a lunch with him and his partners, and that was it.
How do you speak to those people? Do you need to be, I don't know, tell us.
So, those people are not very special, and the best thing that you can do is just be yourself. Just be honest. This is what I want to do. It's in your best interest. So think of, if you start a product, you don't need to be kind of aligning with other people, but you need to find people who align with you. So you'll be going on your way, but you want to make sure that the investors you find, that they want the same thing as you do. So the best way to do this is to be very genuine about what you want to do, what would you use the money for, and then if they want to invest, they'll invest. And if they don't want to invest, they don't invest. If they don't want to invest, then it's definitely not something that you should be worried about. It's probably a good thing. He had a question as well.
Okay. How much of your own money did you spend during the bootstrapping?
So I think I spent about, I probably deployed a few, maybe 20, 30,000 euros, but I spent maybe about 15. About that scale.
And another question.
Half of it came to Cherkasy.
Okay. Why did you choose the startup way instead of enterprise way, since you have the bootstrapped up to the some level?
What do you mean by enterprise way?
Without raising money and going on.
So the question is, why did we raise money at all?
Yes.
Good question. Very good question. Everyone should ask that question, and I'm really worried that people don't ask it that often these days. But the thing is that when you build, so what we're doing is, I'll quote the guy who started MySQL. You're all technical people here. You know MySQL, the database server. Monty, who started it, it's like 10 years ago, he was saying, do you know, guys, Oracle, this is like a $10 billion business. Or this is a $10 billion market, is selling big databases to enterprises. You know, we're going to make it a $2 billion business, but we're going to keep 1 billion of it. So they were in the business of creating something that is very expensive and making it a much kind of a smaller industry, and then keeping much of that industry. But the only way you can achieve this is through economies of scale. So there's this theory of zero marginal cost. So adding another Facebook account doesn't cost almost anything to Facebook. Adding another PayPal account costs almost nothing to PayPal. Actually, for PayPal it does cost because they need to do KYC. But other than that, it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So most of the startups, tech startups, they only work because of scale. So you need to get really, really big, and they work at scale. So that's the point where fundraising is usually a good idea, because you know that you're building something that at scale, it's when it gets bigger, it is economical, but it doesn't work as a cottage industry where you have to, wash the dishes for a small number of people.
Follow-up question about the scale. Is it still true that you're growing 15% every month? That's huge scale. In that case, why you're not profitable? Is it for tax reasons? And what's the scale of your presence in Ukraine? You opened Grivna not long ago. Thank you.
Good questions. So, first of all, why are we not profitable? We're very clever about spending money, so we can still spend more than we earn. So there are actually two parts of it. We don't charge a lot for what we do. So the idea is to charge as little as we need to. So the whole idea is that we're making something very expensive to be cheap. So we try to not charge much to begin with. And we are quite clever of investing money into being able to grow faster. So that's why we've decided not to become profitable. And these days, it's quite easy for us also to, get capital from VCs. So we've raised about $91 million, and someone needs to spend it, so can't be profitable.
About the Grivna, how is that growing? Is it paying off? Is it a good experiment or not?
It's still an experiment. It was designed as an experiment. We see a lot of growth and interest. So we see that it's starting from a very small base. It's been live only for a few months, I think. It's growing strong, but it's still at a very small base. And the way that it works in startups generally, and for us as well, is we always put things live first, and we see how people react to this. What they like about it, what they don't like about it, and then we kind of amplify the things that they like. And when things work, we spend time on them. And with currencies, it's a great example. So actually, Vadim and most of the team in Cherkasy is working on this, putting new currencies live. So they have 40 currencies. They put 40 currencies live, and then some of these get more traction, and then the ones that get more traction also get more focus. And sometimes you just need to wait until you get more traction, and then you start focusing on those things. So we talked through the two first parts. It was the part where before it got started, and it was the part where we kind of bootstrapped our way through fundraising, and then we were almost talking through the the crazy part. So I call it the crazy part because that's where we went from 12 people to about 200 people. I had just a reminder from Facebook yesterday, because about exactly a year we hired our 200th employee. So we were 100 employees 2 years ago, so 200 employees a year ago, and now we're 400 plus, so we managed to more than double in a year. But actually that's an easy part compared to how hard it was to go from 12 to 200. And that, just to give you an idea, I still interview almost everyone apart from customer service agents these days who come to join TransferWise. So I counted, I did more than 300 interviews last year. That's like almost an interview every day apart from Sundays. And usually it's many. So this was crazy times, a lot of fun. And I should explain about the fuck-ups there. So the first fuck-up was that we didn't realize how fast we're growing in the first place. We spent, so basically just to give you an idea how TransferWise worked, we had so many payments coming in that we couldn't hire people to deal with these payments. And we planned, so the planning of like customer service and operating staff was that we had to hire about 15 people every week to be able to catch up with this thing and try to get, so you really want to be in a place where you have a little bit of slack, because if you don't, then once you're hit by the growth, it's very hard to get out of this. It's a very, very bad place to be when you have a long backlog of calls or things that you just cannot deal with. That takes time from developing the product. So this was kind of our first learning, that we should probably have just kind of realized that sooner and went even faster to I think we went too slowly from 12 to 40, and then we kind of realized, and then we went really fast from 40 to 200. I think Vadim, you joined when we were
20, number 20.
Number 20, there you go. That was about 3 years ago. So one fuck up was just not realizing how fast we're growing and dealing with it. The other one was planning. So earlier there, it was, like you're used to, you make a plan and then you execute the plan. That's what I've had seen in my last jobs. It was, you kind of make a product roadmap and then you execute it. I realized that this is all useless. In the startup world, the planning doesn't have a point much. So for a while, we actually dropped planning at all. We had teams so we instead came up with these autonomous teams. So rather than creating a plan for whole TransferWise, because that was, by the time you finished the meeting where you created that plan was already out of date. So that was nonsense. So what we did instead was we created these called autonomous teams. So we figured out that the things that customer wants are cost, they want speed, and they want access. And they want convenience as well. So we split the whole engineering team into those verticals that do something good that the customers want. We have a speed team, we have a currencies team, we have a user experience team, and they can do anything they want, and they plan their own life, how they do it. So that at least got me out of the planning problem, so I didn't have to kind of create or sign off plans, but the teams were doing it themselves, and then they choose whether they want to plan or just want to get on with it. And for a while, they actually just got on with it. I think it was only like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, when we started doing what we call quarterly planning. So once a quarter, we actually do plan, and we kind of share with everyone else what our plans are with the next currencies and so on and so on.
So I wanted to ask, this question was already asked before, but do we have managers in the company?
That's a good question. Do we?
Should I reply to this question myself?
Yeah.
So from my perspective, we have kind of managers, but these managers are mainly more like leaders, not the managers, who tend to stand up, stand out from the whole crowd and say that I want to lead some particular direction, some particular projects, and these people will gather other people around them, will investigate, research the area, and will do the development, product development itself. And of course, I could say that we have the teams that pretty much self-sufficient and self-organized, instead of having like managers that are pushing all the time.
So this is something that we also still hire quite a lot of people, and that gets everyone excited. It's like, and we've written blog posts about this. So how does it work? Do you not have any manager? How does it work? So the truth is we still have an organization. So we have the kind of the traditional idea of an organization, but it's quite invisible because most of the time you don't need to use it. The idea is that when I spent time in management consulting, right? So I was helping people to manage, and I saw that they're really wasting their own time and they're wasting the other people's time most of the time. So I was pretty sure that we can hire smart enough people that they can kind of manage themselves. So you don't need other people to spend their whole life managing other people. You can, but I think especially with engineers and others where it's quite smart, so people can arrange their own work. So we always try to structure in a way that there's as little kind of overhead, a little noise that happens after getting things done, so you can spend most of your time on getting, as we call it, getting shit done, and then you can spend as little as time possible of managing anything around that. So I think the kind of the fair answer is that yes, in theory we have managers, but it shouldn't feel like it because they're not doing anything. Like they're engineers as well. They're not doing anything special for managing.
What is the biggest asset of TransferWise at the moment?
Biggest?
Asset.
Asset?
Yeah, asset.
You want me to say people?
I would hope.
You're so predictable. So yes, people. So the idea is, so basically, what I figured out over these years is the big competitive advantage for Facebooks and Twitters and Googles and TransferWises is really just the speed at which we can build a product or improve the product that we build. Because companies are not really companies. Companies are products. So I never started off. I didn't want to build a company, but I really wanted to build a product. So I built a product, and the company is just the team behind the product and the kind of the organization that runs the product. So the only thing that matters for customers isn't the company or our values or anything. They care about the product. Does it work? Does it not work? Is it good? Is it fast? Is it cheap? And the only thing that matters for the company is how fast are we in making this product better. So that's what sets the difference between Uber and Lyft and Google and Yahoo, because Google is faster and Yahoo is not. So that's why we have Google. So when you ask what's the biggest asset, if I can answer again, it's not people, but it's the speed of people. And I think like this speed thing, it's not about people specifically. So within you alone, you're not a very special guy. But together with Slavic and Vitaly and Vlad, you're
and
pretty
Kristo.
good. And with me, yeah. Together, we have speed. So as long as you can create an organization that has speed, that is the biggest asset.
Cool. So let's move a bit further through the story. How many people there were, like, at this moment?
We're 450 people around there. And that's cool. So 450 people is cool. But again, it's not the main thing. The bigger thing is that since this website where the story began, or my own 500 euros that I lost, the big story is that we move around $750 million every month through TransferWise. So it's people who give us $750 million every month to move it somewhere in the world. But that's not the coolest thing. The coolest thing is that these same people, they save about $1 million every day. So today it's still early in the US, but once the US closes, they have saved about $1 million today on bank fees. So that is really cool. So that's how big we are, if that's what you ask. But yes, we have 400 people not actually, we don't have the 400 people to make this happen, but we have 400 people to build the next versions of that, so that we won't be saving 1 million a day, but maybe 10 million, maybe 100 million a day.
When we became more than 100, maybe it's went to the stage where you cannot see everyone in the company, maybe not judging on should we take this guy or not. Did you get any fuck-ups out of it, that people were not right, or maybe, I don't know, how did you manage hiring the proper guys?
That is a very good question. Yes, we definitely made some fuck-ups on the way. We've departed ways with some people. I think one of them, at one point when it was really crazy, I also thought that maybe we need to hire managers. So we tried that, it didn't work. So we thought that maybe we should hire people who kind of help us manage all the people. That was a really bad idea. That didn't work at all. So we had to, we hired some people whose main kind of skill was managing, and that wasn't good enough. So we had, not good enough, but it wasn't suitable enough. They're great people, but just didn't fit us. So that was definitely a mistake. But I think of that kind of we're now in the last section of the phase. That's our winter days about a year ago. Now we're 400. It's a bit bigger. So from that phase, I don't have a lot of fuck-ups to tell about, because I don't know what the fuck-ups are that we're doing now. So I'll probably, as I said, I need to come back and tell you about the fuck-ups that we're doing today. It's an interesting time. So people say that you can remember 100 names. I could remember 140. I remember exactly, we had, not this summer, but last summer, we had summer days where the whole company comes together from London and from Cherkasy. We meet in the forest near Tallinn, and I could remember everyone's name. That's gone. I can't anymore.
Cool. So anything else we can share today, or should it be?
I mean, I would love to share if you have questions.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
so guys, please don't hesitate to ask questions.
Very simple question. What is your average day looks like? What are you doing? When you are not going to meeting to Cherkasy or somewhere else?
Well, last night I flew in from Dubai. I like airplanes because you're disconnected from everything else, and you can actually do some work that requires a longer period of time. So today started with taking a ride from Borispol to Cherkasy. The road was like that. And then I went for a run in the morning. Some crazy guy was swimming in Dnieper. I was screaming. So it wasn't so crazy that he was swimming in Dnieper, but he was screaming at the same time, like he didn't like it. Why did he go swimming there? Don't understand you. And then today we had, so I had probably 3 interviews, some lunch with the guys here, and now doing a talk. So for the last couple of weeks, I've done a lot of talks, but I try to do about a talk a week. It's either a local startup community or a bigger conference. So I was in Dublin Web Summit, which I don't know if any of you were there. It's like 40,000 people together in a tech conference. That was pretty crazy. Yeah. So most of my time goes into helping the teams figure out what they can do, just working with the teams. It's something that I need to do less and less over time. And then hiring. Most of the time goes into probably hiring people. And then some external partnerships as well. So we have a lot of banks that we work with, governments. That's usually takes my time. A little bit with investors. It sounds worse than it is. It's actually okay.
More hands, guys.
Could you please tell us about the investment, Richard Branson? How did it happen? So maybe some words. Why?
Why? So I can only use what he said. So we actually approached him sometime earlier before we raised the last round, and he, we knew that he had started investing in the startups a little bit, just a little bit. He's done a couple of startups in London. He said no to us the first time. He said that, hey guys, I love the idea, but you haven't really proved anything. So we asked again next year, and he said that he had taken time to think about this and kind of makes sense. The reason why it was different because it was becoming clear how we're actually kind of trying to change the status quo. I would love to change the world if it doesn't sound very cocky, but the idea is that even if TransferWise fails today, so today we're at this scale where for whatever reason, we fail today. What we've already achieved is that people know that this model works. So if we don't do it, someone else will, and this is very cool. So I think for him and for others, the thing that works is when you see that there's someone creating a structural change, either in an industry or the world, and that's where people suddenly get kind of more excited about those things. So if you, like whatever you do, if you can figure out a way that A, solves someone's problem, and hopefully a big problem, and B, creates a kind of a structural change in behavior or change of customs, then that's a pretty worthy thing to try and do. But he's a cool chap.
Yeah, can I ask you?
Yeah.
So I was going to ask about also your first investment, the guy from New York who invested $1 million. I was like always thinking what the interest, I think the question was about what the interest of this guy to invest such a big amount of money in this like barely unknown thing. But how does it happen in most of these cases, or in this case particularly, do they assign some people to control your activity or like what is the profit for them to as an investor? Do they like
So
how do they participate in the process, or like I mean if I had $1 million, even if I had much more of this money, I would always like be interested what's going to be with my money and with my investments. Yeah,
okay,
thanks.
so you're asking people who give other people money, like how do they, how did they let go of the money? Or so let me tell you, there are a couple of ways how to answer this, and I appreciate that this kind of money is a very interesting topic for everyone. I was hoping to talk about people and culture and so on, but end up talking about money. So, people don't like to control. So if you're investing money, you're investing money to make a profit in the future. You're not investing money to worry about what happens with this money. So usually, the kind of control thing isn't the point of investment. So the point of investment isn't to control. The people who make these kind of investments, you're like a college kid. You were just a college kid like 2 years ago. So your chance of life, clearly it's the smart decision. There's so much money on the table. You should think of selling really seriously. But of course, Mark didn't listen to him, and now Facebook is worth, 60 times as much. So since then, for example, Peter Thiel thinks that he shouldn't control the company because he would be making wrong decisions. Or not say wrong decisions, but he wouldn't be taking as much risk as the founders will. So in some ways, people want to give up control, not hold on to it.
Next, very interesting question. When you looked for people, you told that you just Googled and found these guys from Cherkasy. But can you tell a bit more? What did you look for except the skill of coding? How did you meet them? And why exactly these people? Because I believe that you could find much more people on Google.
True. So part of it was luck for me to find Bogdan and the gang here. So there are a couple of things to say about hiring in general. So you will find that hiring is very much a numbers game. The more interviews you can do, the better your chances are. The more people that apply for the job, the better candidates you have. So it's very much actually a numbers game. To be honest, as I explained before I met Bogdan, I did interview actually quite a lot of people, and it's very hard to explain. So I think the reason why Cherkasy, so it wasn't Cherkasy. I didn't come to kind of looking for Cherkasy. I just happened to find Bogdan and Artyom. That was the secret. And then I think rather the question is, if you find the guys that are really good at what they're doing, and it kind of works very nicely with the product that you're building, why don't we, get them to build a team? So I think the interesting part was that, yes, we find one guy, and he actually built a team that we're now, I think, 12 people more in Cherkasy, around that. And a couple of guys, Bogdan himself, has moved to Tallinn. So no, Cherkasy is not a special place probably in the world, but you find special people, they can get other special people around them.
Okay, I actually have two quick questions, if you don't mind. Here. Okay, first of all, could you tell us about your company structure? Probably, yes, you have self-organized team, but you probably should have a board of directors or HR department or some other departments which are also working in your company. It shouldn't be you alone, right? You should have other people helping you in these questions. This was first question. Second question, could you tell about your the model, TransferWise model? It can work, for example, if you have equal amount of buyers in two different countries. But how is it working in Ukraine when you have more money coming in Ukraine than the same amount of money coming out of Ukraine? How is it working here?
Good questions. So first question, I'll ask you back. Okay, you lost the microphone. So you're asking that what's the structure, and we must have other people helping me with these things. So the question is, what are these things? Just to give you some examples, so our first lawyer joined us. I think she was employed 430 or something like that. Or we had finance people before. Our finance director was also joined like a couple of months ago. So these things are usually things that people take care of it themselves. We had people helping with like, I did the first job contracts, and then we had so the structure is actually something that you don't design, it kind of evolves. So I did the first contracts, then Bogdan started building the team here. He did prepared the contracts for those guys, and our ops people prepared the ops contracts. So at one point, yes, I think we were like 40 people, 30 people. We got someone who just helped us with contracts. It makes more sense for one person to do all the contracts. So yes, she works in HR. And there is a structure in the team as well. So there are, like engineering is in some ways one unit, and there's work on this unit that is creating speed for customers. That was the first part of the question. The second question was
about Ukrainian hryvnia and about model.
So the model. So the idea was, as you heard in the beginning, kind of trying to match the flows. What you know from macroeconomics is that the flows actually have to be between currencies. They have to be in balance. Otherwise, what would happen in Russia, probably end of last year, they almost ran out of their foreign exchange reserves because the central bank is just buying the local money that no one wants. And then the price starts dropping. And then Zimbabwe happens where the money doesn't cost anything, or hryvnia is not that bad. So when these flows go, the import-export goes out of balance. So in most countries, it's in some ways in balance. The thing is that it might be that a lot of people are sending money home. Like in India, there's loads of people working abroad and sending money back to India. But then some people need to buy Mercedeses for those euros. So they kind of need euros again. It's just that a different group of people, and sometimes it's businesses, or in oil countries, it's kind of sold for in kind of industrial scale. So for us, if we don't have the balance, we can tap into those other kind of other parts of the industry, usually through kind of wholesale exchanges. So if we don't have the balance, we're able to balance it out from other places.
Is it answered or okay? How many more people having questions? Can we raise hands?
In Twitter.
Okay.
Should I find it on Twitter? Or?
No, she will read it, I think. Yeah.
Okay. More pixels?
Kristo, I know that every person is inspired by some famous or just ordinary people. What life or business stories inspire you?
That is a very good question. I'm actually very easily inspired, so I get inspired about all sorts of things. So it's almost every. I find it so hard to answer this. So almost every life story is inspiring. If you read Nikola Tesla's life story, or Elon Musk's, or even sometimes some politicians, that's very rarely, but it's quite inspiring to see what people can do without on their own. When people are on their own, they can do they can achieve a lot of things. So I'm very easily inspired. I fail to give you a kind of one person. Like most of the people who have started things have been very cool.
Okay, thank you.
Let's do two more questions if we have them. So yeah, please, I'll come to you.
Estonia printed post stamps with TransferWise. You collect post stamps, okay?
My grandfather did collect post stamps, and I was a philatelist of my own when I was young, but not recently. But I do have this one postmark.
Stamps with TransferWise.
So there is Estonian stamps with TransferWise on it. Did you know, Kristo?
I did know, yes.
Ah, okay.
That's very
that's
cool.
Nice.
I didn't realize that this works as advertising.
So one last question. Okay, two.
So, how do you choose your candidates for your team, and what is the ideal employee for your team? Is the professionalism on the first place, or some personal characteristics, or will you hire a junior developer?
We have, I think, now all sorts of people. We have about 32 different nationalities. We have people who are very young, people who are very old. So we have actually all sorts of people. People some haven't even gotten to university yet. It's very rare though. So how do we choose people? I think the easiest way to answer is there's a few tricks. So read my blog. I've written something about this. But I think we can summarize with there's like 4 core values that we believe in the company that we share. And in the interviews, I often try and test for those values, whether the person would enjoy working with us. So one of them is, I think maybe the starting one is that we like people who get, and it sounds profane, but get shit done. So that has to be the first. People who have the affinity to do things rather than talk about doing things. And you can kind of quite easily find out what their experiences are. Are they, have they done things outside of school? Have they built their own projects? We usually tend to ask, what is the thing that you've built or made or created or organized that you're most proud of? And then people, lots of people have those things. The second thing. The second big value, and that is actually a very cool one. It's written on our wall. It's customers are bigger than team, are bigger than ego. So we try to see how people feel about, how they position themselves in this kind of stream. Whether they can put the idea first. Why they're, why are we doing it in the first place? We're doing it because we believe that product can make something better for the wider world. And then there are 2 others. One is, and it's kind of related. One is that it's not a job what we do, but we do it for the mission. So again, I do understand that people need jobs. That's fine. It's not my problem. My problem is to have this big problem solved that we built TransferWise for. So I'm looking for people who want to join me in doing that. It's not good enough if they just need a job. And finally, maybe one of the most important one with people is no drama, good karma. We're really, as I explained, the biggest asset is the speed at which we move. We really have no time for drama. So if you kind of have internal politics or people not getting along with each other, then it's just like bad for everyone. So we try to find people who don't create trauma. It's a waste of time. Last question.
Well, thank you for the great story. And actually, I'm really interested in tech side of TransferWise. So, did you lose any customers' money because of technical problems, maybe attacks? And if you did, what was the way of getting these customers back?
It's a very good question. And we find that people who join us, it's a very interesting experience. Probably the engineers can give you a better idea, but you can imagine we put so much money through the platform that where you're an engineer, you're required to make a commit to our live system in the first week. And so you're there, usually like this, and you see kind of all, you know that there's a lot of money going through, and now you're changing the system, and you're like pressing the button that puts something live. So this is quite a scary thing for every new joiner. And there are ways to make sure that, actually we've come up with very clever ways how to make sure that we don't lose anyone's money. Of course there have been times where we have, like technical problems have delayed money, but it's very hard because the money's in the banking system. So the only way to lose it is to get it stolen or send it to a wrong place. Actually, sending it to a wrong place is hard as well. It usually just gets caught in the middle. So actually, it's not that easy to lose someone's money. But it's has happened a few times where we create a big fuck up and cause payments to be delayed. But I didn't write a single test. I think these days you wouldn't survive if you don't write automated tests.
Thank you.
Cool.
I'm sorry, I've got a question. Can I? Hey, I know that one of the famous questions at interviews.
Hello back there.
Yeah. I know that one of the famous questions at interviews in TransferWise is, how do you see yourself in a year in the company? So I have a kind of a similar question. How do you see the business development in a year, the company?
So it's an interesting question because a year is a short time in some ways, but sometimes in some ways in a very long time. So I tried to explain before, and I don't know how successful I was, that we're kind of 400 people, but we're still in the very beginning of something that is a long journey. So if you think about it, in Ukraine, we're probably still 0.01% of all the money that comes into Ukraine. In the UK, we're starting to be quite a big compared to the banks, but most of the world still sends money through the bank. So we're in a beginning, and I think in a year from now, the company is a little bit less in the beginning, but probably still actually quite much in the beginning. The problem is that the thing that we're trying to solve is just so big that we're kind of making the way on it and kind of learning how to convert more people from using their bank to using something like TransferWise. So a year from now, in terms of people, we're probably, I hope not 1,000, but at least a few hundred more than we are now. We're probably looking at the guys there, probably about 20 more countries, probably around that. And it's quite interesting because now we're getting into countries where the cultures are so different. People are using money in a very different way that we're used to here in Europe. They have different relationship with their banks, different relationship with the money. So we're kind of learning how to, how does it mean to be a global, to think about money in the same way globally. So a year from now, I think it's probably as exciting, if not more exciting, to do what we're doing. Good last question. Thank you, Eliana.
That's a good note to stop our discussion right now. Thank you, Kristo, very much for
Thank
this
you.
talk. Currently, we have half an hour to go downstairs. Everyone is invited. We will do some networking session, communicate with each other, eat some pizza. So let's go there. And wait for a second. Do you need to say something maybe to the, no? Cool, so let's go then.
Give me a second, I need to get my story straight. My friends are in the bathroom getting higher than the Empire State. My lover, she's waiting for me just across the bar. My seat's been taken by some sunglasses, asking about a scar. And I know I gave it to you months ago. I know you're trying to forget, but between the drinks and subtle things, the holes in my apologies, you know, I'm trying hard to take it back. So if by the time the bar closes and you feel like falling down, I'll carry you home tonight.